Okay, so before we start, I'm very big in interaction and figuring out how people are feeling. So before we talk about grants, I wanted to do this small interactive activity. If you've not used Mentimeter before, this is an interactive tool that we can kind of see how people are feeling and doing. So if you would not mind, on your smartphone or in a browser, go to menti.com. You're going to be asked to put in a code, and that code is 35424821. And then you're going to have the opportunity to enter 3 words about how you're currently feeling about approaching that search for grants and donors. This will give us kind of a background on how other people are feeling. So we'll be able to see in real time what our friends in this program are thinking. I'm also going to jump in here too so we can see how this goes. But how are you feeling? Maybe you're feeling anxious. Maybe you're feeling hopeful. I'm not allowed in my own Menti thing, so that might be a problem. If we're not allowed to do it that way, we can put it in the chat. But I have written a couple of grants, and I know personally, yes, I can. So menti.com. And then the code is 35424821. I wasn't able to log in, but maybe you guys might have some better luck than I. Yeah, cool. We got some nice things coming in. Hopeful, interested, and confused. I definitely was hopeful when I started, but it is a confusing process. Improving, learning, almost. So these are some of the words that other people that are in this program are feeling. Apprehensive, scary, overwhelmed. Yeah, that's where I felt when I was applying for grants. And this is kind of what I wanted to see so that you guys could see what each other are feeling so that you know you're not alone in the way that you feel. Cool, thank you for filling that out. The next question I have for you guys, we got different worlds. I saw something else come in. New. Ooh, it keeps changing on me. So as these words get bigger, that means this is what you guys are mostly feeling. So we got overwhelmed, learning, and interested. I understand this anxious, excited, super awesome, because it is an exciting time. Okay. So I have another question. We'll see if I can get it to post. Okay, so on this I have, yeah, so I see someone says, what is this word creation called? Menti. So Mentimeter is the tool that I have. So yeah, it's really cool. So how do you currently search for grants? If you're just starting, that's what we have a couple people answering so far. That's great. You'll be able to get some really cool information, but maybe you've searched for grants before via Google. Maybe you've seen some RFPs, so requests for proposals. I get a lot of my information from email listservs. I really wanted to see if anybody was currently using databases because that's what we're going to cover today. So this is pretty cool. Google search, yes. Most of us are just starting, so that's pretty cool to see. Okay, look for RFPs, word of mouth, databases. Woo, we got someone using databases. Awesome. Glad you're here. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this so we can start because I only have till 10:45. We got a lot of ground to cover. Okay, let me X out of this. And we're here. All right, so finding grants and donors. What are we going to cover today? We're going to be doing an overview of finding grants and donors, pretty much the name of the game. I'm going to talk about how you can take classes here at St. Louis County Library. We have a database of classes where you'll be able to take up to 6-week courses on grant writing, grant finding, discovery. So we have some pretty cool offerings there. And then finally, how to get help from us. All right, finding grants, that's what we're here for. So before you can start thinking about finding a grant, you want to identify your needs. And so you're going to ask yourself 3 questions. And those 3 questions are typically who, where, and then what. So I mentioned I've written a grant before. I've written 2. And I got both of them. So I joke that I'll never write a grant again because I am 100% right now. super excited about that. So with my grants, I'll use the first one that I did as an example. I was working at Lindenwood University, and I wrote a grant to have an author come and visit the school. So the who for my grant was, who are you serving? Obviously, if I'm at Lindenwood University, I'm serving my students and I'm serving my faculty and staff, but could I open that up more, which I did. So I invited the St. Charles County, since we're Lindenwood's located in St. Charles. That was my who. So who is going to be getting this money? This is important to know for your grant, so you can write the data and demographics of who you're serving to beef up and make your grant sound really cool. Then you want to say where they are. So maybe if you're doing something virtual, your people aren't in St. Charles, Missouri. So you're going to want to do some background research on where are your people? Where is the money that you're going to get from this grant? Where is it going to be dispersed to support these people? And then what are you doing for them? So my big who was my students, my faculty, and my staff. My where was St. Charles, Missouri, because I had a captive audience of students on campus at Lindenwood University. And then I was offering them an author visit. So these are things you want to identify before you start that search. And then we can start getting into the search and trying to find a grant. And I pulled all of this from the foundation directory. So they had a webinar and they asked those same questions. So it was really awesome for me to see that I was not alone. So we have the first database we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about 3 is the foundation directory online. This is where we're going to spend the bulk of our time because there's a lot of information in here that I want to make sure everybody gets a really good grasp on. So the foundation directory contains details on grant makers, grants, and grant recipients. It also has the 990 forms of a bunch of different organizations. So you can look at all their funding of grants they funded throughout the years. This is only available though, because it's a super spendy database, it's only available at our regional branches. So you'd have to visit headquarters, Grants View, Florissant Valley, or Daniel Boone to get access pretty much anytime. When COVID started, a lot of databases switched to a remote access, so people could get access from home. And Foundation Directory decided to go a 24-hour day pass path. And so we still have that option. And what that means is with an email, you can log in for 24 hours for 1 day out of the month. And I think it's like exactly 30 days. So if I were to log in now, with my own personal email, I would not be able to log back in until January 9th for another day pass. So if you decide to do this remote option, make sure you're ready to sit and look at the different grant makers out there so that you're not like, oh, I'm going to sit and look at this for 2 hours and then I'm going to, go to sleep or something and then come back later. It's not going to be able to be logged in after that 24 hours. Side note, if you have more than one email though, I have 3. You technically could have 3 day passes. So that's just a nice way to maybe get around it. But it is only a 24-hour access. But if you come to our regionals, you'll have access. So I'm going to click on this Foundation Center link, and then it takes us to our library page. I have it linked to our research resources A to Z. You'll get these slides, so you'll be able to click on these and also get to that same section. But I got here from research resources A to Z, and then I click on F for Foundation Directory. If I scroll down, you're going to see 2 links. So the first link is going to be 24-hour day pass, and then the second link is going to be the remote and branch, or not remote and branch, in branch access. I do see a question, regional branch offers unlimited access to the foundation directory. Yes, so you'd be able to come in any of our hours between 9 and 9. I guess computer access stops at 8:50. Get on one of our public PCs and have access to the foundation directory, but only at those 4 branches: headquarters, Grants View, Florissant Valley, and Daniel Boone. Now we recently extended the access because we only had access at headquarters, so we bought 3 more site licenses. So yes, the in library at regional you can use anytime the branch is open, but the foundation directory at home is only 24 hours. If I click on the foundation directory when I'm in the branch, you're going to be brought directly to this page, which is where we can start our search. So I recently adopted a cat, and I am huge on animals and like being wonderful with animals. Too much information for you guys, but I have 3 dogs, a cat, and a rabbit. So if I was going to make a nonprofit, it would probably be something animal related. So let's say if I wanted to search animal rescue, and then I can put in Missouri. You can start your simple keyword search here. So maybe you're a nonprofit for after school programs. So you could put after school program in Missouri. And this is going to help you find grants in your specific interest, your nonprofit area. So I'm going to put animal rescue in Missouri. We're going to do this nice basic search. There is an advanced search that you are able to do, but I find that the basic search works really well. And then I'll show you why here in a second. So I just put in animal rescue in Missouri, but what Foundation Directory does is it expands my search, and I don't know of any other database that does this. So it says, hey, I saw you said animal rescue, but I also think you could be interested in rehabilitation. You might be interested in animal training. You might be interested in animal adoptions. You might be interested in vet med, and then we have Missouri. So these will be grants that are able to be funded by people that live in Missouri. So the Foundation Directory already expanded and opened my search up a bit more to give me more grant makers, which is super nice. Most databases, you have to be specific to get the thing you're looking for, but Foundation Directory says, hey, we're going to help you out a little bit. So what we see when we first come in is I can look at grant makers, I can look at grants, I can look at the recipients, and I can check out some 990 forms, which is pretty awesome. You're able to dig into the 990s and pull the information out, and you're able to see who a grant maker has funded per year. Some pretty awesome stuff being able to have the 990 tax forms. So we're going to first take a look at grant makers. If I click on any of these boxes, it's going to jump down below. So if I click on this 460 grant makers, I'm going to see these grant makers that are currently offering grants or have in the past offered grants on my very broad topic of animal rescue rehab, animal training, animal adoptions, vet med, and Missouri. I get a nice look of 5 at a time, or I can click on view all to get a more like all the people at the same time. So some things I want to really discuss as we look at this page is if we think about this as an Excel sheet, we have our different columns. So the first column is grant maker. The second one is city, third is state, fourth is country. So these are where these foundations are located. Then we get into this total assets, total giving, amount funded, and grant count. I love switching up words. So total giving, if we hover over this question mark, is total dollars distributed by the organization as reported on their 990. So Greater Kansas City Community Foundation gave away $260 million in their recent 990. The amount funded is something that I think is super important to look at, and if this would stop being glitchy, that would be cool, and it's not going to be. But the amount funded is how much money of that giving went towards my topic, my area of interest. So of the $260 million that the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation gave out in grants, they gave over $5 million in the area of animal rescue and rehab, animal training, animal adoptions, and vet med. And then this grant count is how many grants they offered in that same area. And this list is going to be organized by this column. So how many grants are being offered in your interest area. So before I even go in, I'm able to see who's giving a lot of money to my interest, how many offerings do they have? So maybe if I look down towards the end of the list, I can see, wow, Sailor Hawkins Foundation only has 8. So that's 8 opportunities. Maybe I could get a really cool grant from them, but they're currently only offering 8, and they typically fund a year about $125,000. So this is just a great quick glance. Can you sort by various columns? Yes. So I should be able to click on total assets, and it completely change everything. So yes, you can change the columns, but Foundation Directory does sort automatically by grant count. I'm going back on my word. I will answer questions throughout because these are good questions to answer while we're going. So let's say I'm ready to start looking at a grant maker. If I click on any of these people, I'm able to go in and look at more information about them. So let's take a look at Greater Kansas City Community Foundation. So at the start, I'm going to get their website, which is a really great place for you to go to see, do they publish their previous grants, and do they have like what was funded and how the project goes. So my second grant that I did was for the National Institute of Health. And if you go to the National Institute of Health's website, you can look at past grants and you would be able to read the entire report that I wrote on my grant that I was funded. So sometimes community and organizations will do that. So you can go and look at what's been funded. It's a great place to get ideas for your own grant. That's how I came up with my second grant idea, was reading over other people's grants. But here is the website. You can look at their LinkedIn and then who's who and their contact information, but that's also below. What we first see is this really cool chart. I love these three graphics for many different reasons. First, we have what is being funded, and I'm able to quickly see that this Kansas City Community Foundation is really interested in funding the arts and culture. So if I hover over this, I can see that most of their money is actually going towards arts and culture. And I can hover over each of these to see, okay, where do I fall in? With my idea and my topic. I can also click on this view each subject with more detail, and I can get down into the nitty gritty of different types of topics of interest. I can see how many people received grants, how many grants were awarded in this area of these different topics, which is like super awesome to be able to see this. I think I can even click on human rights and get even more down into the nitty gritty of how this organization is funding different topics. So these charts are super helpful to start getting an idea of, do I align with this organization? You're able to see where the money is going. Since this is Kansas City, a ton of money is going to Missouri. I can click on Missouri and start to see whereabouts in Missouri that the money is going. Jackson, Cass County, Bates County, and then it looks like St. Louis has some pretty good stuff going on, Boone County, Cole County. So I'm able to see where in our state the grant is being fulfilled. If I click into the county, I'm able to see who's receiving these, and I can click even further. I have a wow comment. Yes, this is like one of the most amazing things. I did not know about this database when I wrote grants, and I wish I would have. And then you can see how big the grants are. So I can click on that see more, and I can see the grant maker gave Wayside Waifs in 2018, 538,000, 2017, 285. If I click on these, I can't see like what the grant that was funded was. It's just going to be like, hey, this is what we gave Wayside Waifs. But I am able to click on Wayside Waifs and see the type of money they get and then who they're receiving money from. So that can be beneficial if you find another nonprofit or business that aligns closely with what you're offering. You can see who they have reached out to for grants to see, like, could I also go with that group? I ran it back way up. And go back to this nice thing. So just at the top, you have a lot of great information. As we scroll down, we're going to see those grants. We kind of got to look at this when I clicked on this view grant with more detail. So we're going to see these different grants that were offered. It seems like it's a couple of years behind. So 2018, 2017, and so on. So 2018 seems to be the newest information we have. But for the 990 forms, we do have 2020. This box at the top is going to show most common grant amounts. So that's really good information for you to know if you're like, I need $5,000 for a grant. Well, Kansas Community Foundation gives about $1,000 on average. So are the most common grant size. So maybe this is going to be a good place for me to go. Maybe they will give me up to the 5,000, or could I do something with $1,000? And again, you can see the recipients that are receiving these grants, and you can see how do maybe I am a bird rescue. So I can click on bird rescue and see who else is granting them. So in 2014, they got $29 from the Amazon Smile Foundation. All right, back up. Oh, it opened in another tab. That is okay. So this is actually where we looked at this thing up here where it says what is being funded and what are the different topics that are being funded. But this is where you're going to really find what the area of interest for this organization is. So what subjects are they really wanting to fund and align themselves with? So this is where you're able to see, like, and I think I gave the example of like an after school program. They don't have education listed, so this might not be a great organization for me to seek money from. If their funding interest subject is not listed here. I think like shelter and residential care, this has been something I'm interested in, because if I'm interested in animal rescue, the shelter include animal rescue. Domesticated animals that does though, so I would be able to say like, cool, I have a pretty good chance of working with this organization. Population groups is also good. I remember when we started, we said the who are we serving, where are they, and what are we offering? This is going to be really good for that. Who are my people? Does my population group align with this group? Then we have the where, do I align with this group? And then the what. So this is those three questions kind of answered across the board of, do I align with this organization? We have related organizations, and then there's like another one, other people, like other funders to consider. These are going to be other places that you could look at and say like, okay, does the Ross Family Foundation seem like a place that I might be interested in seeing would fund me as well? You get that nice same grant maker profile. While it's loading. So we have an about. So we have purpose and activities, background, program areas. So this is just going to give you a brief information about this organization and grants. Like this is grants to individuals program, which is another database we'll check out, and then program related investments. We had those other funders to consider, and it's not loading, but there was that blue box of other grant makers that you could look at to say like, we see that your interest is this. We think that if you're looking at this Greater Kansas City Community Foundation, you might also align with these organizations. But the big beef that I think is super important is application and RFPs. So do they have anything published on here that says there's current applications for grants? And on the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation, they have visit the foundation website for application guidelines per grant type. So I already know that it's important for me to go to the websites for Greater Kansas City Community Foundation to really take a look and see what grants they're currently offering. This board meeting dates is also important because typically grants are going to be approved by the board. And so I see they're meeting in March, June, September, and December. So they're meeting quarterly. And so if you apply for a grant, let's say you applied for a grant in March, it's a possibility you might not hear about an approval until about June. So the board can approve the money and have yourself funded. So that's kind of just a nice thing to know in the back of your head. The applications that I filled out, the first one told me a deadline, like you will find out by December of, I think it was like 2015, whether or not you were chosen. The second one was on a round basis. So there was like 3 rounds of approval, and I got through on the second approval round, but I wasn't given a timeline of when the first round would be done, the second round would be done, or the third round. So sometimes the people will tell you, hey, you're going to hear about this date, whether or not we're going to fund you. And some are super really great about, hey, you're going to know by this date at best. Going on with this grantmaker profile, I can look at their financials. So I can see that their total assets is a huge number, and their total giving is 260 million. And that was something we looked at the beginning when we were looking at that like Excel type thing where it said 260 million is what they give, and then like 5 million of that 260 was in our area. I can take a look at their 990s. So I can look at 2018. We have 2018 of this one. I have seen 2020s of others. So I can take a look at the whole tax form that they had to fill out for their organization, and I can see what grants they funded in the year. So that is pretty beneficial. We're able to dig through to see all the money that they were donating or giving away in grants. So that's wonderful. You have a who's who. This is important, not so that you can say like, I'm going to email Jim Henson. This is important because if you know anybody that works at the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation, like let's say maybe I know Kay Saunders, I could reach out to Kay and say like, hey Kay, I see there's a grant in this area. Could you tell me more about it? Sometimes Foundation Directory also gives you like a LinkedIn to look at. And next to their name would be like a little LinkedIn logo. And then you're able to kind of like go and look at that person's LinkedIn page. That's beneficial so that you can kind of see what their interests are, what they've done. Maybe you can include in your grants. Like, I really appreciate that the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation did this project, and I would like to do something similar. You can do some weird stalking this way, but the who's who is really good just to be like, do I know anybody, and can I get some information, inside intel? What I will say is whenever you do find a grant, usually there's some contact information that you're going to be given on the website. Whoever that contact person is a really great person to reach out to. So my first grant that I wrote was for the State Library of Missouri. I was reaching out to Debbie every couple of weeks just to make sure I was doing what needed to be done. And she was very accepting to giving me feedback. So always ask questions if you have them, if there is somebody out there that you can ask questions of. Okay, so that was the grantmaker profile. I'm gonna go back to my search results. I clicked on up at the top, it's finding funding, search results, and then I had some extra things here. If I click on grants, I can see grants that were awarded this year in 2020. So I can see that the United States Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services is funding a lot of people currently. No, Debbie's retiring. No, okay. Debbie is wonderful. Someone in the chat said Debbie is wonderful. And she is a very wonderful human being. I sat next to her at MLA this past couple months ago, and she's so wonderful. That's a little aside. So grant makers, and then I can see the recipients of who's receiving these. These are some pretty large organizations, but let's see what the University of Missouri system was awarded for 2020. They were awarded $295,000 in the subject of agriculture and vet med. So Mizzou has a really big vet med program. So I can think of it as this money went to fund the vet med program at Mizzou. Geographic area was in Columbia, so pretty head on there. But I can click on the recipient, and I think we looked at this with that Wayside Waifs. I can see where their funding is coming from. So what type of organizations are giving. They have 100% governmental organizations. Their grant amount is pretty large. Where are the funders located? Local, same state, same region, same county, or same country, and international. So most of their grants have $56 million of their grants have come from the same country. They're getting about $100,000 to $500,000 grants. This is a big organization. So if, my nonprofit might not be great to look at this, but each grantee profile will have the information for you to see who's funding and how much is being funded. Okay, back out again. Recipients, that's kind of that same thing. We have Wayside Waifs, Stray Rescue of St. Louis. I love them. So I can look and say like, okay, maybe I'm going to start an animal rescue and I want to strive to be like Stray Rescue. I can look at how they're getting their funding, where their funding is coming from within the world, how big are their grants. So their grants are typically less than 5,000, and then what that money looks like from who. So this is just like if I was interested in this Energizer Giving Foundation, I could click on it, click on them again, and then I get back to that wonderful grant maker profile. So this is just a really great resource so you can really dive in to see grant makers, what type of money they're funding, what their interests are, who they're funding, how much they're funding. And this will be a really great start for you to say like, okay, I might be interested in Greater Kansas City Community Foundation. I need to go to their website and look at the current grant offerings they have. It'll just give you that great start to find people for grants as well as possible donors. So donors are hard to find because a nonprofit or the organization doesn't have to say, I specifically gave this much money to this nonprofit. They can say, I gave this much money to a charity. So that might not be on their 990 as like, I gave $900,000 to Stray Rescue, but I donated $900,000. So you can use this to find donors as well to say like the Petco Foundation, it's a big organization, but maybe I could reach out to them to see if they're willing to be a donor. Okay, so we're done with this foundation directory for nonprofits. Before we go on to the second and third database, a big part of picking a grant person or a grant maker is evaluating whether you're a strong or a weak fit for that organization. So we looked at this Greater Kansas City Community Foundation. I would want to see, do I meet this funder's requirements? So we didn't look at their website. We didn't go take a look at what grants they're offering, but a lot of times they're going to have requirements for the grant. My second grant was with the National Institute of Health. And they had some specific requirements that I had to meet. So I had to be in the area. I had to ask for over $20,000. My project had to be something related to health. My first one that I did was the author visit grant for the Missouri Library Association. I had to have never had an author visit at my university before or at my institution. And I had to be serving like a greater community. So you want to make sure that you meet the requirements before you start diving into the grant and taking your time. Number two is my mission or the project's goal a priority for this funder? So when we were looking at the foundation directory, we looked at those project interests and I could see like domesticated animals, maybe shelter and residential care fell into there, but I know they had an interest in domesticated animals. I brought up if I was doing after school programs, I might not have aligned. I think we would have been a weak fit with Greater Kansas City Community Foundation because that wasn't an interest that they had. Number three is you want to see how big are the grants. So you want to be able to see like, is this grant going to actually fund the need that I have? Both of the grants that I wrote, I had to ask for more than 20,000. So I had to get creative on how to spend that money because I was just trying to invite a speaker to come to our campus. But with the Missouri State Library Association, I knew immediately my grant is $5,000. So I'm able to build my grant knowing what money I need upfront. Number four is, does this funder support organizations like mine? So we had that grant function where we're able to see other grants that they gave to, and then I can look at those profiles of who those grant recipients were. And then I can also visit their websites. And then do I know anybody associated with this funder? That's where that who's who comes into play. So that's where you say like, did I know Kay? Can I talk to Kay and reach out to Kay to see what she understands? Can I bounce my idea off of her? Can she bounce it back? When I went for my second grant with the National Institute of Health, there is a wonderful person in library world named Chris Pryor, who's the regional leader of National Institute of Health for National Networks of Libraries of Medicine. I knew her from previous experience of working with her, so I was able to bounce my ideas back off of her to be like, this is what I'm thinking, what do you think? And she helped me grow my grant to the wonderful program that we were able to offer at Lindenwood. So think of these 5 questions before you dive into the actual grant itself. So we have 3 questions before we start looking for grants. And now I want to see these 5 questions. Do I have a weak or a strong fit with the organization that I'm interested in? All right, so we talked about like a big like nonprofit getting grants. We also have this database called Foundation Grants to Individuals. The unfortunate with this database is it's only available at headquarters. We will have to figure out what to do because headquarters will be renovated at some point next year. So I have to figure out where we're going to be then. But it is unfortunately only available at a headquarters. And this database is finding financial support for individuals, so single people, instead of like a business or a nonprofit, to really find funding for scholarships, money for professional development, research initiatives. So if I was a researcher, let's say at Mizzou for vet med, I could look at this database for grants for myself. So the same link took us to resources A to Z. Under the foundation directory online, which we just looked at, is grants to individuals. I can access that because I am here. So I'm going to click on the search. You're going to see all the searches I've done in this database. But we're going to stay in the same realm, animal research in Missouri. Another little side about me is I went for my master's in psychology. And I didn't do animal research, but there were quite a few labs in my program that did animal research. So maybe I am in those labs and I'm wanting to find a grant for my bird research or my rat research in Missouri. So we're going to hit search. And this, so the first page looked a lot like Foundation Directory Online that we just looked at. The second page is a lot more condensed. Animal research in Missouri extended to domesticated animals, zoology, diseases and conditions, and Missouri. Putting Missouri helps for both of them, helps make sure that you're finding grants that are able to be funded for your region. So I see that I have 9 possible grant makers that might give me money. So I can look at Stower's Institute of Medical Research, and that's that grant maker profile that we kind of saw before. But again, it's going to be a lot less information since we're an individual. So I can look at what their funding interests are. And so one of the labs when I was in grad school was doing research on rats, starvation and socialization. So they were starving their rats and then having them be socialized or not socialized. And then like the control group was they were able to eat whatever they wanted and then socialize as what they wanted. Sounds really horrible. I adopted a rat from that study and he was the best rat I've ever had. Again, I'm a crazy animal person, but let's say I'm in that study, I'm in that research, and I want to see, does the Stower's Institute of Medical Research have an interest in my area? So their subject interest is diseases and conditions. I honestly don't think that starvation and socialization fit within this subject, but they are funding in Missouri and they are supporting researchers, undergraduate research, postdoctoral research, fellowships, and then like a professional individual development. So if I was looking at maybe a specific disease or a specific neuro condition in my rat, I might be able to look into this funding from Stower's Institute. I have the about information on the background and program areas, and then I have the current RFPs. So I can see that the deadline for undergraduates is February 1st. So if I was an undergrad, I would say I can start looking at that grant application now, getting all of my information and have it submitted by February 1st. And then giving limitations, grants and fellowships to undergrad, grad, or postdoc students pursuing a career in biomedical field. So this is this is what they're funding. If I do not fit in here, then I am a weak fit and I want to start looking for a different organization. So this is just a way more condensed version of Foundation Directory Online that we looked at. And then the last database we're going to take a check at is Grant Select. I might go a couple minutes over, we'll see. So I'm going to go back to my slide because got so excited. So this is available remotely. So that's the benefit, I think, of Grant Select. You're able to access this 24/7 from anywhere in the world that you have an internet connection and a St. Louis County Library card. You can find grants for individuals or organizations, but it's just not as in-depth as FDO is, our Foundation Directory Online. So I had jumped the gun and I clicked on Grant Select. So it's much of a more basic feel of an interface. When I want to start my search, I can click on Quick Search or Advanced Search. To me, the quick search is actually pretty advanced. Instead of like when we were on Foundation Directory, we just had that search box. This one gives me more like limit by geographic, limit by subject headings. I'm just very basic and when I start my search. So I'm just going to do like a nice animal rescue search and keep it to Missouri. If I clicked on advanced search, you get a few more options of these boxes, but we're going to keep it here. And so this is what I'm going to get. It's just not as fulfilling as Foundation Directory is, but I see that these are the different grant titles that are currently being offered. If I look at this American Humane Hero Dog Awards, that sounds adorable. I'm going to be taken to the grant profile so I can see the American Humane is the organization, and this is their website. I have their URL to the specific grant, the description of said grant, the requirement of that grant, and then where they're going to be located. And then also nice samples. So it's a much more condensed FDO, but you get more of the like, these are current grants versus, oh no, these are current grants instead of grant makers that you have to go and find the profiles of or look at the RFPs. So this is just a nice secondary database to go into, especially since it's available 24/7. That was a quick view because we are 3 minutes till we get done. All right, so classes at St. Louis County Library. I mentioned this at the beginning and I put air quotes around it because we have two databases. The first one is GALE courses, the second one is LinkedIn Learning. GALE courses is a database that we have where you're able to sign up for 6-week courses that are led by teachers asynchronously. So it's not anything that you have to sit down at Tuesday at 6 p.m. to do. It's on your own time, but you do have deadlines within the program or course itself. And the offerings that GALE Courses has is Get Grants, A to Z Grant Writing 1 and 2, Advanced Grant Proposal Writing, Writing Effective Grant Proposals, and Nonprofit Funding or Fundraising Essentials. These are really great courses to dive into. These 6-week courses start every month. So you could look today and say, I want to say it's like around the 13th, 14th, middle of the month. You could go in today and say, I'm going to sign up for Get Grants. You could sign in next month and say, I'm going to sign up for January Get Grants. There's always an offering to start that 6-week course. And then LinkedIn Learning, we have different courses and training videos. There's not anything specific to grants, like a specific course for grants, but there's really good videos that have some intel on applying for grants or writing grants. When I send you these slides, these are active links that you'll be able to click onto to get to both databases. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is getting help. So we are always here for you while we're open, 9 to 9 Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5 Friday and Saturday, and then 1 to 5 on Sunday. We have a service called Book a Librarian where you're able to get one-on-one help for an hour on specifically your need. So maybe as I was talking, you were like, I'm still anxious about it. So we looked at our, you all sent me in words, maybe I'm still overwhelmed. Well, you can book a librarian and we can sit with you and go through trying to find those grant makers and those grant funders specific to your need. So there is a book a librarian form on our website. It is also, this is a nice link here, and I'm gonna put it in the chat box really quickly if I can find it. But this is just really great because you'll be matched up with a librarian and you get literally a devoted hour of time to talk about just your need. You can always email us. So our Our department email is referenced at slcl.org. I also threw up my email, so if you want to specifically talk to me, mine is mpfeifferdavis@slcl.org. And then if you have just a quick question that we can maybe answer within like 20 minutes or less, you can call during our open hours at 314-994-3300. There will be an option to say like, I need help with small business or databases. Both of those options are going to take you to my department, and you'll be able to talk to a librarian about the question that you have. So this is a great way to get help with us. If you don't have a library card, that's the next form, or next link I'm going to put in the chat. So if you don't have a library card with us and you live in St. Louis County, City, St. Charles County, or Jefferson County, you are able to get a library card. And if you don't live in any of those counties, but maybe your business or your nonprofit is located within St. Louis County, you are still able to get a card with us. And then last but not least, that survey link that if you fill it out to tell us what you want to see from us in the future, you'll be entered in to win a $15 gift card. And I'm open to questions. We are a little over, so if you need to leave and go to your next session, that's fine, but I will stay on for any questions that people might have. You are welcome. Thank you for coming today. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yes, it's a lot of information that I went over too. So if you ever need us, book a librarian. We are here. You can ask for me specifically. You can email me. You can do what you need.